The night air hung heavy as Nathan Harrington turned his key in the front door. After cutting his business trip short, he stepped quietly into the home he'd built with his wife Clara, hoping to surprise her. 15 years of marriage had taught him the gentle rhythm of their household. The way the third stair creaked, how the hallway floorboards sighed under pressure. His fingers brushed against the wall as he navigated the darkness, guided by the faint glow spilling from their partially open bedroom door. What awaited him wasn't the peaceful sanctuary he expected. A man's low laughter, unfamiliar and intimate, drifted through the gap. Nathan's pulse quickened as he approached, each step weighted with growing dread. When he pushed the door open, time seemed to freeze. There in their marital bed, the same bed where they'd conceived their twins, where they'd whispered dreams and promises, lay Clara entangled with another man. Candles cast dancing shadows across their naked bodies, illuminating his wife's expression of pleasure that instantly transformed to horror when she spotted him. "Nathan?" Clara gasped, scrambling to cover herself. The stranger, muscular and younger than Nathan, reacted with surprising calm, meeting his gaze with almost defiant composure. "Who the hell are you?" Nathan's voice emerged as a strangled whisper, barely audible over the blood rushing in his ears. "Victor," the man replied simply, as if introducing himself at a dinner party, rather than being caught in an act of ultimate betrayal. Have you ever experienced that moment when your reality shatters completely? When everything you believed about your life reveals itself as a carefully constructed lie? The cold grip of betrayal is unlike any other pain. It doesn't just hurt, it transforms you. In that split second, Nathan's world collapsed. His trusted partner of 15 years, the mother of his children, had invited another man into their most intimate space. The foundation of trust that had supported their entire relationship cracked irreparably beneath his feet. What would you do if faced with such raw betrayal? Would you lash out in rage, retreat in shock, or something else entirely? For Nathan Harrington, this devastating discovery would set in motion a chain of events that would end with his own brutal murder. The truth about what happens when desperate people make catastrophic choices will shock you to your core. Because this story isn't just about infidelity, it's about how quickly human beings can justify the unthinkable when cornered by their own mistakes. Before we continue this harrowing journey through the final days of Nathan Harrington's life, take a moment to subscribe to True Crime Dossier. Each week, we explore real stories that reveal the darkest corners of human psychology and the devastating consequences when relationships collapse under the weight of secrets and lies. Click that subscribe button now, because understanding the warning signs might someday save a life, perhaps even your own. The Harrington family home stood on Maple Avenue in Brookhaven, a pristine colonial with crisp white trim and a meticulously maintained garden. From the outside, it embodied everything the American dream promised: success, stability, and domestic harmony. The kind of home that made passers-by slow down just to admire it. Nathan and Clara Harrington had carefully constructed this life over 16 years. Their story began at Georgetown University, where Nathan studied civil engineering and Clara pursued art history. They married within a year of graduation, settling in Brookhaven because it offered the perfect blend of community atmosphere and proximity to Nathan's work opportunities. By his 40th birthday, Nathan had established himself as one of the region's most respected civil engineers. His portfolio included bridges, government buildings, and community centers that would stand for generations. Colleagues described him as methodical and brilliant, a man who could visualize structural solutions where others saw only problems. His team at Harrington Associates had grown to 27 employees, each selected for their exceptional talent and dedication. "Nathan builds things that last," his business partner once remarked at a neighborhood barbecue. "When he designs something, you can bet your life on it holding firm." The irony of that statement would only become apparent later. Clara managed their domestic sphere with the same precision Nathan brought to his blueprints. Her days followed a carefully crafted routine. Mornings spent preparing breakfast for the twins before school. Afternoons divided between charity committee meetings and maintaining their showpiece home. evenings orchestrating family dinners that belonged in lifestyle magazines. The Harrington twins, Emma and Noah, were 13, gifted students at Brookhaven Academy, where they excelled in different but complementary ways. Emma dominated mathematics and science competitions, inheriting her father's analytical mind. Noah showed promise as a cellist, his musical talents nurtured by Clara during countless hours of practice and private lessons. Together, they created a portrait of family perfection that earned them invitations to every significant social gathering in Brookhaven. The annual Harrington Christmas party became the highlight of the community calendar, with Clara transforming their home into a winter wonderland that left guests marveling at her attention to detail. "I don't know how she does it all," whispered Amanda Peterson, chair of the Brookhaven Garden Society, to another member during one such event. "Perfect children, perfect husband, perfect home. Some people just seem blessed. But perfection requires constant maintenance, and beneath the gleaming surface, hairline cracks had begun to form." The first subtle sign appeared 3 years earlier, when Nathan's firm secured a major contract for a municipal complex in Philadelphia. The prestige project demanded 80-hour workweeks, leaving him physically present but mentally absent during rare family dinners. Clara smiled through his distraction, mastering the art of carrying conversations alone while he reviewed calculations in his head. Photographs from that period reveal the shift. Nathan's necktie increasingly loosened, Clara's smile not quite reaching her eyes. In group photos, they stood slightly farther apart than in earlier years, the space between them small but significant. Then came the canceled anniversary trip to Santorini, postponed due to unexpected structural issues with the Philadelphia project. Clara received a diamond bracelet instead, delivered by courier with a handwritten note of apology. She wore it to charity functions, deflecting questions about their delayed celebration with practiced grace. "We're prioritizing the important things," she would say, though her gaze often drifted to couples who still held hands at social gatherings. The twins noticed the changes too. Noah began spending weekends at friends' homes, while Emma immersed herself further in academic competitions that frequently required overnight travel. The family calendar on the refrigerator filled with separate commitments, their paths intersecting less frequently as months passed. By the summer before Nathan's murder, the Harrington home had transformed into something akin to an elegant hotel, a place where family members moved through shared spaces with polite distance, each pursuing individual orbits that rarely aligned. Yet to neighbors and friends, the facade remained intact. Clara continued hosting dinner parties where she and Nathan performed synchronized domestic harmony. They attended school functions side by side, applauding their children's achievements with genuine pride. Their social media accounts displayed carefully curated family moments that suggested continued domestic bliss. What none of their admirers could see was Clara's growing restlessness. The way she lingered at her bedroom window after Nathan left for work, or how she began visiting the gym with increasing frequency, her workout sessions growing longer each week. No one noticed when she started applying lipstick before routine errands, or how she checked her phone more frequently, her expression brightening at certain messages. The Harringtons had mastered the art of appearance, but appearances, however convincing, cannot forever mask the hollowing out of a marriage that was already far emptier than anyone suspected. The shift in Nathan and Clara's marriage occurred so gradually that neither could pinpoint exactly when things changed. Like water wearing away stone, small compromises and missed opportunities accumulated over years, transforming their once vibrant connection into something hollow and mechanical. Nathan's corner office at Harrington Associates displayed more family photos than his actual presence warranted. As the firm expanded to include international projects, his schedule stretched beyond reasonable limits. Conference calls with Shanghai at midnight, pre-dawn meetings with London investors, weekend site inspections that couldn't be delegated. "Just until we secure the Anderson contract," he'd promised Clara, kissing her forehead absently while scrolling through emails on his phone. "Once that's finalized, things will calm down." But they never did. Each completed project immediately connected to another opportunity, too important to pass up. Nathan's successes mounted, his professional reputation soared, while his emotional presence at home diminished to brief appearances between commitments. Warning sign number 1. When quality time becomes a future promise rather than a present reality, connection begins to dissolve. For Clara, the expansive 6-bedroom home that once represented achievement gradually transformed into a beautifully appointed prison. The gleaming hardwood floors echoed with emptiness as she moved through rooms that no longer held meaningful conversations. Her daily routine, once structured around supporting Nathan's career and raising their children, now stretched before her purposeless and hollow. She volunteered for additional charity committee responsibilities, attempting to fill vacant hours with meaningful activity. Yet the satisfaction proved fleeting, incomparable to the genuine connection she craved. Nathan's building a legacy, Clara would tell her friends when they noticed his absence at events. This phase won't last forever. But privately, she wondered if this was simply their permanent reality, living parallel lives under one roof, connected more by mortgage payments and parental obligations than genuine intimacy. Warning sign number 2. When you consistently defend your partner's absence to others, you're often trying to convince yourself that it's acceptable. Physical intimacy faded without dramatic confrontation, no heated arguments or explicit rejections, just a series of rain checks and exhausted sighs. Night after night, Nathan would crawl into bed long after Clara had fallen asleep, his body curved away from hers, the gulf between them widening with each passing week. Morning routines that once included shared showers and lingering breakfast conversations devolved into efficient coordination of schedules. They communicated primarily through text messages and family calendar updates. Conversations became transactional. Logistics about the twins' activities, household maintenance issues, social obligations they couldn't avoid. By their 15th anniversary, they'd perfected a choreographed display of affection for public consumption. Hand-holding at school functions, synchronized smiles for photographs, appropriate displays of gratitude for gifts exchanged without genuine thoughtfulness. "You look beautiful," Nathan would say automatically at formal events, his eyes already scanning the room for business connections rather than truly seeing his wife. Warning sign number 3. When compliments become automatic rather than authentic, emotional connection has been replaced with social performance. Clara's journal entries from this period revealed her mounting frustration. June 15th. Another dinner alone. Nathan called to say the zoning meeting ran late, left his plate in the microwave. 15 years married, and I can count on one hand the proper conversations we've had this month. July 8th. Tried initiating sex last night. Nathan claimed exhaustion again. Can't remember the last time he touched me with intention rather than habit. Am I invisible, undesirable, or just convenient? August 24th. Realized today that if I disappeared, the only thing Nathan would truly notice would be the absence of pressed shirts in his closet. Clara began justifying her emotional withdrawal as self-preservation. If Nathan could prioritize work above marriage, why shouldn't she protect herself from continued disappointment? She focused on redecorating the guest bedroom, joined a book club that met weekly, and enrolled in a watercolor class, constructing a life separate from her increasingly absent husband. The twins approaching high school required less direct parenting. Emma immersed herself in college preparation, while Noah found community in musical theater. Clara watched them develop independence with mixed feelings, pride in their growth, sorrow at another role slipping away from her identity. Warning sign number 4. When spouses begin building completely separate lives without attempting to bridge the gap, they're creating infrastructure for permanent disconnection. Nathan, despite his emotional distance, noticed changes but misinterpreted them. He saw Clara's new activities as positive developments, his wife finding fulfillment while he secured their financial future. The possibility that she was creating escape routes from their marriage never occurred to him. When Clara stopped asking about his day, Nathan felt relief rather than concern. When she no longer complained about his late nights, he considered it acceptance rather than resignation. The growing silence between them felt peaceful to him. not ominous. During a rare moment of reflection while stuck in airport traffic, Nathan composed an email to Clara. I know I've been absent. The Wellington project finishes next quarter. After that, we should plan something special, just us. Maybe revisit Santorini? I miss you more than you realize. He saved it to drafts, intending to refine it later. It remained unsent, forgotten among meeting agendas and budget proposals. By the time Clara met Victor at Brookhaven Athletic Club, the emotional vacancy in her marriage had expanded beyond her capacity to endure it. She wasn't actively seeking an affair, but she was desperately seeking someone who would actually see her. Warning sign number 5. When emotional needs remain chronically unmet, people become vulnerable to anyone willing to fulfill them. Clara first noticed Victor Delgado while struggling with a rowing machine at Brookhaven Athletic Club. 3 months into her new fitness routine, she still couldn't quite master the proper form. You're leaning too far back at the finish, a confident voice observed. She looked up to find a man watching her with professional interest rather than judgment. His athletic build suggested years of disciplined training, while the club's trainer badge explained his authority to correct her technique. Mind if I demonstrate? Victor asked, waiting for her nod before adjusting the settings. His movements were fluid and precise, as he showed her the proper sequence. Keep your back straight. Engage your core. The power comes from your legs, not your arms. Something about his attentiveness, the way he focused entirely on her form, her progress, her improvement, stirred a sensation Clara hadn't experienced in years, being the center of someone's complete attention. You've got it now, he said, his approval warming her more than the exertion. I'm Victor, by the way, new personal trainer. Clara Harrington, she replied, accepting his handshake and noting the comfortable way his fingers wrapped around hers. Apparently in need of more guidance than I realized. His laugh came easily, warm and authentic. We all need guidance sometimes. That's why I'm here. The session ended with Victor professionally suggesting a training schedule. Clara agreed without hesitation, suddenly determined to improve her fitness. Their first official training session 3 days later established a pattern. Victor challenged her physically while engaging her mentally, asking questions about her interests and opinions rather than making small talk. When she mentioned her abandoned art studies, he asked follow-up questions that showed genuine curiosity. Why did you stop painting? He asked during a plank exercise. Life got busy. Marriage, children, responsibilities. She answered automatically. That doesn't answer why, he persisted, his eyes meeting hers in the mirror. Plenty of married mothers still paint. His challenge, gentle but direct, forced her to consider the actual reasons. No one had questioned her choices in years, least of all herself. After weeks of increasingly personal conversations, Victor suggested coffee after their session. In the cafe across from the gym, they talked for 2 hours, Clara arriving home barely in time to prepare dinner before Nathan returned from work. Where were you? Nathan asked absently, loosening his tie while reviewing documents at the kitchen island. Just got caught up at the gym, she replied, her heart racing at the half-truth. Nathan nodded without looking up. The Henderson proposal has some structural issues. I'll be in the study if you need me. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. With Nathan, she existed as background, a domestic fixture providing necessary support. With Victor, she emerged as a fascinating individual worthy of discovery. Their first kiss happened 3 weeks later, after an intense training session that left Clara feeling stronger than she had in years. You're transforming, Victor said as they stood in the empty studio, his eyes conveying more than professional assessment. Into what? She asked. Into yourself, he answered, stepping closer. The woman beneath all those expectations and obligations. When his lips met hers, Clara's initial impulse to pull away dissolved into a hunger she'd forgotten she possessed. The kiss lasted seconds, but shifted her world permanently. They established careful routines, Tuesday and Thursday training sessions extended into private meetings in Victor's apartment across town. Clara invented a watercolor workshop to explain her Monday absences. They communicated through an app that automatically deleted messages, their digital footprint minimized through practiced caution. Victor's apartment became Clara's sanctuary, a modest one-bedroom where nothing demanded her attention except mutual desire. No charity committees, no domestic responsibilities, no performance of perfect wifehood. Just honest connection with a man who saw her completely. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," Victor would ask as they lay together, genuinely interested in her answers. With Nathan, physical intimacy had devolved into an occasional mechanical act. With Victor, Clara rediscovered her body's capacity for pleasure and connection. Beyond the physical, she found herself sharing thoughts and vulnerabilities she'd hidden for years. Her abandoned dreams, her frustrations, her fear of disappearing into the role she'd created. Yet alongside the exhilaration grew a persistent unease. Each lie required 3 more to maintain it. Each secret meeting demanded elaborate preparation and careful alibis. The compartmentalization exhausted her, being Victor's lover, Nathan's wife, the twins' mother, Brookhaven's ideal community member, each role increasingly incompatible with the others. Have you ever found yourself living a double life? The strain of maintaining separate realities can become overwhelming. If you've experienced a relationship that required secrecy, or witnessed someone caught between commitment and desire, share your thoughts in the comments below. What warning signs might have appeared before things reached this critical point? Like this video if you've ever witnessed the devastation that follows when parallel lives collide. The Wellington Project in Chicago concluded 36 hours ahead of schedule. As Nathan sat in his hotel room reviewing the final documentation, an unfamiliar sensation crept over him. A hollow victory. Yes, the project had secured his firm's reputation for excellence, but at what personal cost? His gaze drifted to the framed photo of Clara he still carried in his briefcase. Taken on their 10th anniversary, her smile radiated a joy he hadn't seen in years. Something about her increasing distance had finally penetrated his professional focus. The separate lives they'd constructed felt suddenly precarious, a structure built on compromised foundations. Nathan closed his laptop and made a decision. Rather than staying for the celebratory dinner with clients, he would return home early, surprise Clara with the weekend he'd been postponing for months. Perhaps they could reconnect, rebuild what had eroded between them. He even stopped at the airport jewelry store purchasing a pair of sapphire earrings that matched her eyes. Flight 237 to Boston now boarding. The announcement pulled him from contemplation. He gathered his briefcase, the small jewelry box tucked safely inside, and boarded with renewed purpose. During the flight, Nathan mentally composed what he would say to Clara. He acknowledged his prolonged absence, his failure to prioritize their marriage amid professional demands. He rehearsed promises to rebalance their lives, sketching plans for a second honeymoon, perhaps to the coastal Italian town where they'd first traveled together as newlyweds. The house appeared different as he approached it that evening, not physically altered, but somehow charged with an unfamiliar energy. Nathan noticed Victor's car parked 2 blocks away, though he didn't recognize it then as significant. The practiced quietness of his entry, a consideration developed over years of late returns, would prove fateful. Nathan placed his keys on the entryway table, registering unusual details: wine glasses in the sink, music playing softly upstairs, Clara's gym bag abandoned by the stairs rather than in its customary place in the mudroom. Small disruptions to established patterns. His footsteps were absorbed by thick carpet as he climbed the stairs, anticipation mixing with an inexplicable apprehension. The master bedroom door stood partially open, warm light spilling into the hallway. Nathan paused, hearing Clara's laugh, a sound so rarely directed at him recently that he almost didn't recognize it. Then came a man's voice, low, intimate, followed by Clara's playful response. Nathan's hand froze on the doorknob. His heart hammered against his ribs as reality crystallized with devastating clarity. Still, some desperate part of him searched for innocent explanations, perhaps a movie playing or a phone conversation on speaker. He pushed the door open. The scene burned into his consciousness with photographic precision. Clara straddling a man's lap, her head thrown back in pleasure, candles illuminating their naked bodies. The stranger's hands gripped her hips possessively, guiding her movements. Their shared intimacy was so complete, so absorbed, that several seconds passed before either noticed Nathan's presence. Clara saw him first. Her expression transformed from ecstasy to horror, eyes widening in recognition. She scrambled backward, grabbing at sheets to cover herself. "Nathan!" His name emerged as a strangled gasp. "You're supposed to be in Chicago." The banality of her statement, focused on his unexpected presence rather than her betrayal, struck Nathan like a physical blow. Victor recovered with unsettling composure, sitting up calmly while reaching for his discarded pants. "You must be the husband," he said, his tone almost conversational. Nathan stood immobilized, unable to process the collapse of his reality. The jewelry box in his pocket now felt like a leaden weight. Words evaded him as competing emotions battled for dominance: rage, humiliation, disbelief, grief. "How long?" he finally managed. Clara pulled the sheet tighter around herself, tears streaming down her face. Whether from shame or simply being caught, Nathan couldn't determine. "Nathan, please," she whispered. "You don't understand." "How long?" Each word emerged precisely, controlled. "4 months," Victor answered when Clara remained silent, "though it's been building for longer." Nathan's gaze shifted between them, the wife he'd neglected and the stranger who'd replaced him. The intimacy of their knowledge about each other became suddenly, unbearably apparent. They shared secrets, inside jokes, preferences he'd forgotten or never learned. "Get out," Nathan said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Both of you." Clara flinched as if struck. "This is my house too. You can't just—" "Your house?" Nathan's composure shattered. "The house I designed, that I paid for, where I raised my children? You bring another man into our bed and claim ownership?" His voice escalated with each question, years of suppressed emotion erupting volcanically. The earrings burned in his pocket, concrete evidence of his belated awakening to what he'd already lost. Victor stood, pulling on his shirt with deliberate slowness. "You should calm down. This isn't entirely Clara's fault. Don't you dare tell me how to react." Nathan advanced toward Victor, hands curling into fists. "You entered my home, slept with my wife, and now presume to lecture me on appropriate responses?" Victor raised his hands in mock surrender, but his expression revealed calculation rather than contrition. "Just saying, man. Marriages break down for reasons. Maybe ask yourself where you've been while Clara needed someone." Nathan lunged forward, grabbing Victor by the collar. "Get out!" Clara scrambled from the bed, wrapping the sheet around herself. "Nathan, stop. You're making everything worse." "Worse?" Nathan laughed bitterly, releasing Victor with a shove. "How exactly could this be worse, Clara? Please enlighten me." Victor collected his remaining clothes with practiced efficiency, maintaining eye contact with Clara throughout, some silent communication passing between them that excluded Nathan completely. "Call me when it's safe," Victor murmured to Clara as he moved toward the door. "Safe? Safe?" Nathan seized a framed wedding photo from the dresser and hurled it against the wall. Glass shattered, the symbolic destruction matching his internal state. "Nothing about this will ever be safe again." Clara stood trembling, her composed facade crumbling as Victor descended the stairs. The front door closed with a decisive click, leaving husband and wife alone with the wreckage of their marriage. "I want a divorce," Nathan said flatly, pulling the jewelry box from his pocket and tossing it onto the bed. "I came home early to save our marriage. Apparently I'm too late." As Clara stared at the small blue box, comprehension of what she'd destroyed finally registered on her face. "Nathan, please. We need to talk about this. The children, don't. He cut her off. Don't use Emma and Noah as shields. This is about you, Clara. Your choices. Your betrayal. He turned toward the door, unable to remain in the room, saturated with evidence of her infidelity. I'm going to a hotel. When I return tomorrow, I expect him gone and you ready to discuss separation arrangements. What Nathan couldn't see as he walked away was Clara's expression shifting from remorse to fear, not of losing him, but of losing everything his income provided. Behind that fear, something more dangerous was forming. Desperation. The BMW's tires crunched on gravel as Clara parked behind Victory Coffee, a small cafe 15 miles from Brookhaven, where no one would recognize her. Her hands trembled as she reapplied lipstick in the rearview mirror, mascara already ruined from hours of crying. The weight of Nathan's ultimatum pressed down on her with suffocating force. Inside, Victor waited at a corner table, his expression grave. Clara slid into the seat across from him, her designer handbag, a birthday gift from Nathan, clutched against her chest like armor. He's talking divorce, she whispered, voice raw. Wants me out of the house. Said his lawyer will contact mine tomorrow. Victor reached for her hand. We knew this might happen if we got caught. You don't understand what divorce means for me. Clara pulled away, panic edging her words. Nathan's prenuptial agreement is ironclad. I get almost nothing if infidelity is proven. She stared into her untouched coffee, cataloging what she stood to lose. The house goes to him. My car. Access to our joint accounts. My position on every committee in Brookhaven. The children. Her voice broke. He'll fight for full custody and win. What judge wouldn't side with the faithful, hard-working father against the cheating mother? Victor shifted uncomfortably. You could get a job, Clara. We could find an apartment together. Her laugh was brittle. A job? Doing what? I haven't worked in 15 years. My art history degree is worthless now. And an apartment? Do you understand what that would mean? Going from a 5-bedroom colonial to some rental unit? The twins sharing a bedroom? Shopping at discount stores? She leaned forward, voice dropping. My monthly clothing allowance is more than your rent, Victor. My jewelry collection could buy your car 10 times over. This isn't just about losing Nathan, it's about losing my entire existence. Victor's jaw tightened. So it was never about us. Just what I could provide that he couldn't. That's not fair, Clara protested. What we have is real, but reality includes consequences. Nathan will destroy me. He designs buildings to withstand earthquakes. Imagine what he'll do to someone who shattered his marriage. She described Nathan's rage upon discovering them, the shattered wedding photo, the jewelry box thrown onto their bed, the cold precision of his words. I've never seen him like that. He'll take everything just to punish me. Victor sipped his coffee, considering. What if he couldn't divorce you? What do you mean? What if Nathan wasn't around to file for divorce? The implication hung between them. Clara stared at Victor, searching for signs he was joking. Finding none, she glanced nervously at neighboring tables. Don't say things like that, she hissed. Victor leaned closer. Think about it, Clara. If Nathan died, you'd inherit everything as his widow. The prenup becomes meaningless. You'd keep the house, the lifestyle, your status. The insurance payout alone would set you up for life. You're talking about murder, Clara whispered, the word barely audible. I'm talking about survival, Victor countered. Your survival, our future together. Clara's mind raced through implications, objections forming and dissolving as she processed the unthinkable suggestion. People would suspect. The timing, only if it looked suspicious, Victor interrupted. But accidents happen every day. Heart attacks, falls, home invasions gone wrong. The logical part of Clara's brain screamed warnings, but another voice calculated what she stood to gain. Financial security, custody of her children, preservation of her social standing, everything Nathan threatened to strip away. "I could never," she began, but her protest lacked conviction. Victor pressed his advantage. "Nathan made his choice when he decided to destroy you. This is self-defense, Clara. Protection of your future, of our future." He outlined a plan with disturbing efficiency: Nathan's predictable habits, the layout of their home, how to create the appearance of a break-in. His tone was methodical, as if discussing a business proposal rather than the elimination of a human being. Clara listened, neither accepting nor rejecting, allowing the possibility to take root in her consciousness. "The twins would lose their father," she said finally. "They'd still have their home, their school, their friends," Victor countered. "With you still in their lives and financially secure, Nathan's planning to tear all that away." He reached across the table, clasping her hands. "This isn't a decision to make lightly, but consider what Nathan's planning to do to you. To us." Clara withdrew her hands, gathering her purse. "I need time to think." "We don't have time," Victor's voice hardened. "Nathan's meeting his lawyer tomorrow. Once legal proceedings start, everything gets more complicated." Clara stood, legs unsteady. "I'll call you tonight." The drive home stretched eternally, her mind cycling through possibilities, justifications, and fears. She imagined the twins in a cramped apartment, their private school replaced by public education, weekend activities canceled due to financial constraints. She pictured herself working entry-level jobs, enduring pitying glances from former friends, becoming Brookhaven's cautionary tale. In contrast, Nathan's death offered continuation. Grief, certainly, but with all external structures intact. The house would remain theirs. College funds would stay secure. Her position in the community could transition from respected wife to sympathetic widow. Victor could gradually be introduced later, after an appropriate mourning period. Clara parked in the garage, noticing Nathan's empty space. The house echoed with absence as she moved through rooms that held 15 years of accumulated memories. She paused in the study, where a framed family portrait showed happier times, before Nathan's work consumed him, before her resentment festered, before Victor offered an escape. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Meeting lawyer at 9 a.m., home by 10 to discuss separation terms." The message crystallized her decision. Clara dialed Victor's number. "If we do this," she said without preamble, "we need absolute certainty it can't be traced to us." Victor's voice was calm, resolved. "I've been thinking about details. We need to meet again. Tonight." "The boathouse at Lakeview Park," Clara suggested. "Midnight. No one will see us there." As she ended the call, Clara caught her reflection in the window, a woman she barely recognized, contemplating actions beyond comprehension. For a brief moment, alternative paths flickered in her mind: accepting the divorce, rebuilding from scratch, finding honest work, creating a more modest but honorable life. Then the grandfather clock chimed, each resonant tone marking the countdown to Nathan's return, and her decision solidified into cold resolve. Some lines once crossed, forever alter the crosser. Clara Harrington stepped over that boundary with her next breath, transforming from unhappy wife to calculating conspirator with terrifying ease. The clock struck 11 as Nathan returned to the empty house. In his absence, Clara had meticulously prepared the scene, leaving lights on in select rooms, a glass of whiskey poured on the side table, classical music playing softly from the living room speakers. The stage was set for what would appear to be Nathan's typical evening alone. Clara texted Victor from the guest bedroom. "He's back, drinking downstairs. We'll call when ready." 3 miles away, Victor sat in his car behind the community center, dressed entirely in black. The heavy wrench from his gym maintenance kit lay wrapped in cloth on the passenger seat. He'd chosen the weapon carefully, untraceable to him, heavy enough for a single decisive blow, with a grip unlikely to retain fingerprints if wiped properly. Victor had rehearsed each movement mentally throughout the day. Enter through the side garden gate, approach the house using the path obscured by hedges, access through the unlocked kitchen door, navigate to the living room where Nathan would be working, position himself behind the armchair, One powerful strike to the back of the head. Exit using the same route. Dispose of the weapon in the reservoir 5 miles north. Simple. Clean. Efficient. What he hadn't accounted for was the cold sweat now drenching his shirt, or the tremor in his hands as he gripped the steering wheel. The abstract concept of murder had transformed into imminent reality. Could he actually end a man's life? Victor closed his eyes, visualizing Clara losing everything, her home, her children, her status, and his resolve hardened. Inside the Harrington house, Clara moved with deliberate quietness. She'd removed her jewelry and changed into dark loungewear that wouldn't show stains. The twins were safely at a friend's house for an overnight study session, an arrangement she'd made with calculated foresight. From the doorway, she observed Nathan in the living room. He sat in his leather armchair, tumbler of whiskey in one hand, phone in the other. The divorce lawyer's business card lay on the coffee table, a physical reminder of impending destruction. Clara's stomach clenched. There would be no turning back after tonight. Taking anything specific when you leave tomorrow? Nathan asked without looking up, his voice flat. I'd like an inventory for the lawyers. Clara forced steadiness into her voice. Can we discuss this in the morning? I'm tired. Exhausted from betraying our marriage, or just from getting caught? His bitter laugh contained no humor. She retreated without responding, climbing the stairs to the bedroom and closing the door audibly. Then, with practiced stealth, she descended the back staircase and sent the agreed signal to Victor. Now. Victor approached the house with measured steps, each footfall precise and controlled. The kitchen door opened silently on recently oiled hinges, Clara's careful preparation. Inside, the house felt hostile, as if the structure itself recognized him as an intruder. He navigated through the darkened kitchen toward the glow of the living room, the wrench growing impossibly heavy in his gloved hand. From her position at the dining room threshold, Clara made eye contact with Victor as he entered. A slight nod confirmed their agreement. No words, no hesitation, just execution. Nathan remained focused on his phone, scrolling through property law statutes, oblivious to the predators converging behind him. The classical music, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, masked any betraying sounds. Victor positioned himself precisely, gauging distance and angle. He raised the wrench high, summoning strength born of desperation and fear. The first blow caught Nathan at the base of his skull, a sickening crack that seemed to echo despite the music. His body jerked forward, phone clattering to the hardwood floor. Before he could turn or cry out, Victor delivered a second strike with mechanical precision. Nathan collapsed forward, blood spreading across the cream-colored carpet in widening circles. Clara's strangled gasp broke the moment's terrible suspension. She rushed forward, fingers seeking a pulse at Nathan's neck. Finding none, she looked up at Victor, her expression transformed by the reality of what they'd done. He's dead, she whispered, the words hanging between them like an accusation. Victor stared at his handiwork with detached horror, as if someone else had wielded the weapon. We need to move quickly, he managed, voice unnaturally level. The break-in scene. They worked with frantic efficiency, following their rehearsed plan. Clara scattered drawers in the study while Victor smeared blood on the window frame. They overturned furniture, emptied jewelry boxes, created convincing chaos throughout the first floor. Your rings, Victor reminded her, still wearing gloves. Leave only the wedding band. Clara removed her diamond engagement ring and anniversary bands, adding them to the stolen items. Then she carefully rearranged Nathan's body, positioning him as if he'd confronted an intruder. I need to establish my alibi, Victor said, already moving toward the kitchen door. Call 911 in 15 minutes. Remember, you came downstairs to find him after hearing noises. Clara nodded mechanically, her gaze fixed on Nathan's body. Blood had seeped into the carpet, forming a dark halo around his head. This man she had once loved, the father of her children, reduced to cooling flesh and congealing blood by her decision. As Victor slipped away into the darkness, Clara sank to the floor, maintaining careful distance from the blood. She had expected to feel triumphant, perhaps relieved. Instead, a glacial emptiness spread through her chest. She had secured her future but fractured her humanity in the process. In his car, Victor stripped off his gloves and outer clothing, sealing everything in a plastic bag. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. The murder itself had taken less than a minute, but its memory would stretch eternal. The sound of impact, the sudden limpness of Nathan's body, the metallic smell of blood. He had crossed an uncrossable line. Whatever future he and Clara might build would forever rest upon this night's foundation of violence and betrayal. Emergency responders arrived within minutes of Clara's frantic 911 call. Red and blue lights pulsed across the manicured lawn as police cruisers and an ambulance crowded the driveway. Clara stood barefoot on the front porch, arms wrapped around herself, tears streaming down her face. A portrait of devastation carefully composed. "My husband," she sobbed as Detective Marcus Rhodes approached. "Someone broke in. I heard noises. I found him in the living room." Rhodes, a 20-year veteran of Brookhaven Police, guided her gently to a patrol car where she could sit. "Mrs. Harrington, I know this is difficult, but I need to ask you some questions." Clara's performance struck precisely the right notes. The shock-induced pauses, the trembling hands, the disjointed responses that suggested a mind unable to process trauma. She explained how she'd been upstairs reading when unfamiliar sounds drew her downstairs, where she discovered Nathan's body and signs of a break-in. "Everything's destroyed," she whispered. "His watch collection, my jewelry. But none of that matters. Nathan is gone." Inside, forensic technicians moved methodically through the house, photographing the apparent chaos. Overturned furniture, scattered papers, emptied drawers, blood spatter on the carpet and nearby wall, the broken side window suggesting the intruder's entry point. Lieutenant Jessica Morrow, lead investigator, studied the scene with professional detachment. "Looks like a burglary gone wrong," she observed to Rhodes. "Homeowner probably interrupted the thief. Confrontation turned violent." Rhodes nodded, but something about the scene nagged at him. Windows broken from the outside, but glass fell in a strange pattern. And nothing's missing from the electronics. Expensive laptop still on the desk, big screen TV untouched. "High-end burglars target jewelry and cash these days," Morrow countered. "Electronics are traceable. The medical examiner confirmed death by blunt force trauma, estimating time of death between 11:15 and 11:45 p.m., aligning perfectly with Clara's timeline. The murder weapon was absent, presumably taken by the killer. By dawn, Clara had made the devastating calls to family, including Emma and Noah, who returned home accompanied by their friend's parents. The twins' anguished cries echoed through the house as they processed the incomprehensible loss of their father. Clara held them, genuine tears flowing as the complexity of her crime expanded to include her children's suffering. The investigation proceeded with professional efficiency. Detectives canvassed the neighborhood, collecting statements from anyone who might have seen something unusual. Most neighbors reported nothing, but Patricia Wilson, an elderly insomniac 3 doors down, mentioned seeing a dark sedan driving slowly past the Harrington house around 11:20 p.m., without headlights. "I noticed because it was unusual," she told Rhodes. The car stopped briefly near their side gate, then continued around the corner. Detective Morrow requested footage from security cameras throughout the neighborhood. Most residences in Brookhaven featured sophisticated surveillance systems, a fact Clara and Victor had overlooked in their planning. The community center's parking lot camera captured a black BMW, matching Victor's vehicle, parked for 30 minutes, then departing at 11:10 p.m. 4 days after the murder, as Clara arranged Nathan's funeral with public dignity and private relief, the first significant crack appeared in their fabrication. Forensic analysis revealed that blood patterns on the living room carpet were inconsistent with Clara's account of finding Nathan already dead. The blood was disturbed, the technician explained to Rhodes. Someone knelt beside the body, then carefully repositioned themselves to avoid the blood. If Mrs. Harrington found him already deceased, as she claims, these movement patterns don't make sense. Additionally, the broken window showed inconsistencies. Glass fragments lay in an arranged rather than natural pattern, suggesting staging. Most damning, microscopic wood splinters embedded in Nathan's skull didn't match any item in the house, implying the murder weapon was brought in and removed by the killer. Rhodes requested phone records for both Clara and Victor Delgado. The fitness trainer had appeared briefly at Nathan's funeral, offering seemingly appropriate condolences to Clara. But officers noted their carefully maintained distance, a performance that struck Rhodes as rehearsed rather than natural. The records revealed texts between Clara and Victor ceasing abruptly the day before the murder, then resuming 3 days after. Suspicious timing that suggested awareness of potential investigation. Additionally, location data placed Victor's phone within a half-mile of the Harrington home during the estimated time of death, contradicting his claim of being home alone all evening. When confronted with this evidence, Victor maintained his innocence, but showed telling signs of stress, excessive sweating, avoidance of eye contact, contradictory statements about his whereabouts. The pressure began to fracture his composure. Security footage from a gas station near the reservoir captured Victor's BMW at 12:17 a.m. the night of the murder. The station attendant recalled a man matching Victor's description, appearing nervous as he purchased a coffee and asked about cameras in the area. Most compelling was testimony from James Foster, a neighbor walking his dog the night of the murder. Initially overlooked in the investigation, Foster came forward after seeing Victor's photograph in a news report about the case. "I saw that man walking quickly from the direction of the Harrington house around midnight," Foster stated. "He was carrying something wrapped in cloth. I thought it was odd, but didn't connect it until I saw his picture." The carefully constructed narrative of a random break-in began collapsing under investigative scrutiny. Each new piece of evidence tightened the focus on Clara and Victor, their deception increasingly transparent to experienced investigators. What do you think gave Clara and Victor away? Was it the staged break-in, their suspicious behavior, or the technical evidence that ultimately exposed their crime? Share your theories in the comments below about which clue you believe was their biggest mistake. Would you have spotted these inconsistencies if you were investigating? Like and share this video if you're following this case, and subscribe for our detailed analysis of the upcoming trial. The interrogation room at Brookhaven Police Department held nothing but a metal table, 3 chairs, and the crushing weight of mounting evidence. Victor Delgado sat rigid, maintaining his innocence through 13 hours of questioning. Detectives Rhodes and Morrow had presented surveillance footage, phone records, and witness statements, methodically dismantling his alibi piece by piece. "We found traces of Nathan's blood in your car, Victor," Rhodes said, sliding photographs across the table. "Microscopic droplets on the steering wheel. Explain that." Victor's composure fractured visibly, a slight twitch beneath his left eye, beads of sweat forming despite the room's chill. "I want a lawyer," he repeated for the 4th time. "That's your right," Morrow acknowledged. "But before we end this conversation, you should know we've obtained a search warrant for your apartment. Forensic teams are there now, examining every inch. If the murder weapon is there, it's not," Victor interrupted, the instinctive response betraying his knowledge. Rhodes leaned forward. "Where is it then?" The question hung in the air as Victor realized his mistake. His shoulders slumped, the facade of innocence collapsing like a house of cards. "She promised we'd never be caught," he whispered, more to himself than the detectives. For the next 3 hours, Victor's confession emerged in halting fragments. The affair with Clara, Nathan's discovery and threat of divorce, Clara's fear of losing her lifestyle and children, their midnight meeting at the boathouse where they plotted murder, his role as executioner, Clara's careful staging of the crime scene. "I threw the wrench in Milford Reservoir," he concluded, voice hollow with defeat. "Weighted with rocks from my landscaping." Across town, Clara maintained her performance as grieving widow. She organized Nathan's memorial service with tasteful precision, accepted condolences with tearful gratitude, and continued cooperating with investigators, each action calculated to reinforce her innocence. When Rhodes and Morrow arrived at her door with additional questions, She welcomed them with practiced hospitality. "Anything to help find whoever did this to Nathan," she insisted, serving coffee in delicate china cups. "We've been reviewing security footage from neighboring houses," Rhodes began casually. "Interesting thing. There's a 4-minute period where you appear to leave your bedroom and use the back staircase, shortly before you claim to have discovered Nathan's body." Clara's hand trembled slightly, coffee sloshing in her cup. "I might have gone to the kitchen for water. The shock has affected my memory." "We've also examined your phone records," Morrow continued. "Multiple texts to Victor Delgado the night of the murder, then nothing until 3 days later. Can you explain that timing?" "Victor was my trainer," Clara countered smoothly. "We occasionally texted about scheduling. After Nathan's death, I naturally suspended my fitness routine." Rhodes nodded sympathetically before delivering the devastating blow. "Victor Delgado has given us a full confession, Mrs. Harrington. He described in detail how you planned your husband's murder together after Nathan discovered your affair." Clara's face drained of color. The cup slipped from her fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor, a physical manifestation of her collapsing deception. "Victor is lying," she whispered, voice stripped of its careful modulation. "He's trying to blame me for something he did alone." But the evidence against her had solidified beyond denial. Forensic analysis had identified her fingerprints on Nathan's collar where she'd repositioned his body. Data recovery specialists had extracted deleted text messages between her and Victor, including explicit discussions of the murder plan. Most damning was security footage showing Clara signaling from the dining room window at exactly 11:18 p.m., the agreed signal for Victor to approach. Clara Harrington was arrested for first-degree murder and conspiracy. News of her involvement shocked Brookhaven completely. The community that had admired her perfect facade now recoiled from the calculated ruthlessness beneath it. Neighbors who had attended Nathan's funeral, consoled the twins, and brought casseroles to the grieving widow now struggled to reconcile those gestures with Clara's true nature. Parents at Brookhaven Academy whispered about how they'd welcomed a murderer into their homes, included her on committees, trusted her with their children. Media descended on the quiet suburb, transforming the Harrington case into national news. "Marriage, murder money," screamed headlines above photos of Clara being led to court in handcuffs, her designer outfit replaced by prison attire. The twins, devastated anew by their mother's betrayal, withdrew from school and moved in with Nathan's brother in Connecticut, their lives permanently altered by their parents' fatal decisions. As Clara awaited trial in county jail, the home she had killed to keep was seized as evidence. Standing empty on Maple Avenue, its perfect exterior now a hollow reminder of the destruction wrought by desperate ambition and calculated deception. The Brookhaven County Courthouse overflowed daily during the 3-week trial. Spectators lined up before dawn, hoping to witness the proceedings that captivated the nation. Inside, Clara Harrington sat beside her high-priced defense team, her once immaculate appearance dulled by months in county jail. Prosecutor James Donovan built a methodical case, presenting the jury with a timeline of premeditation. This wasn't a crime of passion, he argued during opening statements. Clara Harrington and Victor Delgado calculated every detail, from ensuring the children were away, to staging the break-in, to disposing of evidence. They murdered Nathan Harrington for one reason: financial gain. The prosecution displayed text messages between the conspirators, forensic evidence from the crime scene, and testimony from witnesses who placed Victor near the Harrington home. Most devastating was Victor's own testimony against Clara, negotiated in exchange for a reduced sentence. "She said we couldn't be together unless Nathan was gone," Victor testified, avoiding Clara's glare from across the courtroom. "She planned the details, when to strike, how to stage the scene, what to tell police." Clara's defense team attempted to portray her as another victim, manipulated by an obsessive lover into participating in a crime she never wanted. They highlighted Nathan's emotional neglect and Victor's dominant personality, suggesting Clara suffered from trauma-induced compliance. Clara Harrington made terrible choices, her attorney conceded, but Victor Delgado wielded the murder weapon. He executed the plan while she remained trapped in a psychological prison of fear and coercion. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours before returning their verdict. guilty on all counts for both defendants. At sentencing, Judge Eleanor Montgomery addressed Clara directly. You orchestrated the murder of your husband, the father of your children, to maintain your lifestyle and avoid the natural consequences of your choices. This court sentences you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Victor received 25 years with possible parole after serving 15. His cooperation with prosecutors earning him leniency Clara would never know. The aftermath rippled through countless lives. Emma and Noah Harrington, now in the custody of their uncle, entered intensive therapy to process their multiple traumas, losing their father to murder and their mother to prison. Nathan's architectural firm dissolved, its projects redistributed to competitors, its employees scattered to other companies. Brookhaven itself changed irrevocably. The community that once epitomized suburban security installed additional security systems, established neighborhood watches, and regarded newcomers with suspicion. The Harrington home remained unsold for years, its notoriety overshadowing its architectural beauty. 5 years after Nathan's murder, Clara continues serving her sentence at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. Victor works in the prison woodshop, crafting furniture he'll never sit on outside confinement. Their relationship, the catalyst for murder, dissolved immediately after arrests, each blaming the other for their shared fate. This case teaches us that beneath perfectly maintained exteriors often lie dangerous secrets. The facade of the ideal marriage masked a void where communication and honesty should have existed. When deception replaces dialogue, tragedy becomes possible. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to True Crime Dossier for weekly explorations of cases that reveal the darker side of human relationships. Share your thoughts in the comments. What warning signs did you notice? Could this tragedy have been prevented? Join our community of critical thinkers examining how ordinary people cross extraordinary boundaries and what we can learn from their devastating choices.